Today we're going to learn something new. We're going to learn how to add and subtract polynomials. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about the different types of polynomials and how to recognize them. So the first type of polynomial we're going to look at is called a monomial. And we know that the word mono means one, as such as if someone has a monologue in a play, there's just one person speaking. If someone wears a monocle, they have one eyeglass. For math, monomial just means one term. So these terms could be variables, such as x. It could be a constant, such as 21. It could be a product of a constant or a variable, and a variable such as 5y. It could also be the product of a constant and a variable that has a positive exponent. So something like 4x squared, or even something like ab squared c to the third. Those are all monomials. Now note I said that it has to be, if there's an exponent, it has to have a positive exponent. Okay, so we'll talk about negative exponents in a bit and what to do then. But those are all examples of monomials. The second type of polynomial is a binomial. And a binomial is just two monomials that are separated by addition or subtraction. Bi meaning two. So we could have something like x plus 9. That's a binomial. It's made up of a variable and a constant, separated by addition. Could be something like 3x minus 5. Could be something like 6x squared plus 4x. Those are all binomials. Each one is consisted of a monomial separated by addition or subtraction. If we have three terms separated by addition and or subtraction, it's called a trinomial. So that could be something like 5x squared minus 2x plus 4. So there's three monomials separated by addition and or subtraction. It could be all addition. It doesn't have to be a combination of addition or subtraction. So it could have been 5x squared plus 2x plus 4. And likewise, it could have been all subtraction as well. So 5x squared minus 2x minus 4. All of these are trinomials. Now, once we get to 4 or more terms, we don't have to come up with another name like quadrinomial or something like that. We can just call them polynomials at that point. But it's important to know that all of these monomials, binomials, and trinomials are polynomials too. So what is a polynomial? The word poly means many, and the word nomial means term. So polynomial just means that there are many terms. As we discussed already, polynomials can be monomials, binomials, or trinomials. But there is one important catch. They can never be written as division by a variable. So for example, 4 divided by x, or 5x divided by y squared. Something like that does not count as a polynomial. Polynomials should be written in descending order, starting with the greatest power at the front and the term with the least power at the back. So in the example 8x plus 4x to the 8th minus 2x squared plus 4, I need to rearrange that so it's in descending order from greatest power to least power. Well, the greatest power is 4x to the 8th. Then we have our 2x squared. Then we're going to add 8x, and then we're going to add 4. So you can see we started with the greatest power, and it descended down towards the least greatest, which is the constant in this situation. Okay, let's see if we can identify the polynomials from the non-polynomials in this group that I have here. So the first value we're going to look at is 3x. Well, 3x is a product of a constant and a variable. That makes it a monomial, which is a polynomial. Then we have the constant -18. Constants are monomials, so that counts as a polynomial. We have x squared, which is x times x. That's the product of two variables. That is also a monomial. X to the negative second power. That is not a polynomial, and here's why. When I simplify this by writing it with the positive exponent, I get 1 over x squared. And now you can see that's division by a variable, so that's not a polynomial. 3 plus 1 divided by x. This is not a polynomial because of that 1 divided by x. We can't have that. 4 divided by x minus 3. Again, division by a variable does not count. So this is not a polynomial. 4x squared plus 2y. This is a polynomial. It's two monomials separated by addition. 4c minus 8cd plus 2. This is a trinomial separated by subtraction and addition, so this counts as a polynomial. And lastly, we've got 3 divided by x minus 2. This is a polynomial. And you might be wondering why when we've got that division by a variable there. But when I simplify this, I end up with 3 divided by 1 over x squared. And then I multiply by the reciprocal. So the answer is actually 3x squared when simplified. So that is a polynomial. So again, you have to be careful that you've simplified some of these terms into their simplest form. That way you can make a proper judgment. All right, let's talk about the parts of a polynomial. The first part that we're going to look at is called the degree, and that's simply the largest exponent or sum of exponents within the polynomial. In this trinomial, x cubed plus 4x to the second power minus 9, the largest exponent here is the 3. So our degree is 3. Then we have something called the leading coefficient, and that's simply the coefficient of the first term of a polynomial after it's written in descending order. In the binomial 5x minus 7, it's already written in descending order, so the leading coefficient is 5. Then we have negative x to the 5th minus 2x to the 4th plus 4. This is also written in descending order already, so the leading coefficient here is negative 1. And as we recall, if there is not a number in front of a variable, we can put a 1 there. So now we can see there's our leading coefficient. Then we have the constant term of a polynomial, and that's simply which number is the constant. We already know what constants are, so in the example 4y to the 8th plus 2xy minus 4x minus 2/3, the negative 2/3 is our constant. Make sure you're including the symbol there, the operation symbol, to tell us that that's a negative. Okay, now we have types of polynomials. There are linear, quadratic, and cubic. We already know linear is something that can form a straight line on a graph. So anything that could be written as y equals mx plus b. So for example, 5x minus 2 is linear. I could write that as y equals 5x minus 2. I could also have done that in function notation. Right, that's linear. It's got a slope of 5 and a y-intercept of negative 2. Likewise, I could have had something like f of x equals 4x. So that line has a slope of 4 and goes through the origin. I could even have something like y equals negative 1. That's a horizontal line that goes through negative 1 on the y-axis. So all of these are called linear. Next we have quadratic, and these are things that would create a parabola on a graph. We haven't graphed parabolas yet, but they're basically anything where the degree of the polynomial is 2. So for example, we could have y equals x squared. We could have something like y equals x squared plus 2. So those are all quadratics. And then finally, cubic is something that has a degree of 3. So something like f of x equals x cubed plus 2x squared plus 5x. Something like that would be a cubic. Now, we can classify these a little bit further. So for example, this is a linear binomial. This one here, y equals negative 1, that would be a linear monomial. X squared plus 2 is a quadratic binomial. So I'm naming it by the degree. So that one's quadratic because it's got a degree of 2. And then I'm also classifying it by how many terms there are. So it's a binomial, and together it's a quadratic binomial. That means this here would be a cubic trinomial. So that's how we can classify these different polynomials. All right, I'm going to stop here. That finishes part 1, which is all about the vocabulary. There'll be a Quizlet for you to help you memorize these. And in part 2, I'll go over how to add and subtract. If you have any questions, email me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.